Hello, and welcome to Health and Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Join me today as we take a dive into the world of health and fitness, where we learn how to overcome adversity to pick back from fiction and see health and fitness in a whole new light. Guys, I said it before. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it every episode. Go check out our new Patreon account. If you are a gym owner, personal trainer, fitness coach, health coach, you want to take your game to the next level, get access to me, I'm going to help you grow. So please, if you're interested, go check out links in the description. But without further ado, let's get to this week's episode. Before we even introduce our guest, I'm going to give a little bit of backstory because this is going to be a little bit of a different episode where we're going to do a follow-up on the great keto debate. And for those that may be new listeners, I highly recommend you go check that episode out. It is a little lengthy, coming in around an hour and 45 minutes, but it is so worth it. We had a panel-style episode to talk all about the keto diet, and a year and a half later, that thing still gets tons of views. So I know all of you guys are really interested to maybe branch out a little more into what the keto diet is. If you had any questions, we're really going to have a huge advocate for it on here today. So I'm excited to ask him all the hard questions. He's agreed to be awesome. No, I'm just kidding. He is awesome in general. So without further ado, let me welcome to the show, Ryan. Ryan, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on today.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to talk about this topic again because it's been so long, 18 months roughly, since we last even talked about the keto diet. But before we even do that, let's give our audience some backstory on you, what you do for a living, how you got started. Go for it.
All right. So I'm a ketogenic fasting health coach, basically. I see people who are interested in using the ketogenic diet for various reasons. One of the popular ones is weight loss or body composition handling. And a lot of people find as they're doing it, they get amazing other benefits. So we end up working on mental health, emotional stability, energy levels, sleep, body inflammation, getting rid of pain, all sorts of things. So I work on a lot of word of mouth. So as that goes around, I find myself working with people who want to handle different things in their life health-wise with the ketogenic lifestyle. So long story short, that is what I do.
What got you started into this industry and the fitness industry, health industry altogether?
You know, I've always been really interested in health and wellness in general. You know, I was one of those people who grew up trying the latest vitamin or supplement that was out there and wanted to see what it would do. And then over the years, I became interested in helping people. I worked for a long time as a personal counselor for people, helping them in their day-to-day lives with their emotions and mental health and whatnot. And then recently I became exposed about 3 years ago now to the world of health and wellness and how much that can benefit people. And I had noticed over the years that many people had trouble because of physical barriers. They weren't doing well because their health was not handled. So I kind of developed this system where I embodied both what I knew as a personal counselor and what I now was learning as a ketogenic health coach, and the fasting aspect of that especially, and created a system where I help people lose weight, handle their life at the same time, and improve on many fronts. So I kind of evolved from a personal counselor into a health coach who also uses other tools to make people do better in life and handle what they want to.
I gotta say, even if we didn't just do a podcast episode on the keto diet, I love the combining the personal counselor into the health first, because that's what we talk about all the time on the show. It's
Nice.
This mental aspect to working out, this mental aspect to what you're putting in your body, where your brain plays such a prominent role in helping people understand that there's a way around it and coaching them through it is much more what a counselor does than most other industries, which just makes it so difficult for just like regular personal trainers or coaches. It's just like, they don't have that background of being a counselor where they can truly connect to somebody. So incorporating that in is amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it dovetails for me. I never even realized how much it would until I started doing it. And I was like, wow, this is very workable. It's just amazing.
Yeah, definitely. It's absolutely amazing that you're doing all of this. So let's break down into a little bit of our main topic and really hit it hard. So we're
Okay.
talking about the keto diet. First, tell me a little bit about how you teach it and what are some things you give to your clients? Like, how do you explain it to them?
Okay, sure. So for me, the ketogenic diet really works well with fasting. So I tend to get someone into a state of ketosis, which is where they're burning fat for fuel. The fat is turned into ketones, which are then used for fuel. So, 99% of people who aren't doing a ketogenic diet are burning sugar and carbohydrates for fuel, which is turned into glucose and used. But you train the body basically to use fat for fuel. And as soon as that happens, people tend to want to start fasting naturally. I'll have guys and women who I work with, and they're doing ketogenic diet. All of a sudden, they're like, I'm down to 2 meals a day. I wasn't even trying. So that's where we start getting into the fasting aspect of it. And fasting is so important because, yes, it helps with body composition and it helps with a lot of energy issues, but it also does deep cleansing of the body and deep detoxification. Detox that you don't get just by eating foods that detox. This is actually the built-in detox system of the body. So if I had something to teach people, it would be how to fast, but using the ketogenic diet to create a fasting state allows a person to go into a state of autophagy, to start building up their body and get into a whole new level of health. And as a nice side effect, they usually lose a bunch of weight, they feel great, and all these different amazing things happen. So, in a nutshell, that's what I do.
That was a lot in a nutshell. You sound like me when I'm talking about fitness. It's like I do this, but 600 of a million things. But in a
Yeah,
nutshell, and people look at me like. So I
yeah, it's hard
totally
to distill
understand.
it down, but
I totally understand the passion behind it. So that's awesome. All right, so we'll start with one of my first questions, which goes into you mentioned a lot about fasting and how getting somebody to eat less is the ultimate goal. And I agree, most people are sitting there, they're overeating. But wouldn't that same thing be occurred if they just ate less? So naturally, for example, where your stomach, the more you eat and the more you constantly get full, it's going to say, oh my God, I need to be bigger, I need to be bigger, I need to be bigger. And it's going to expand out and then you're not going to get full as easily. Whereas the flip side of it, if it's not getting filled, you're going to feel hungry, but over time, smaller meals are eventually going to fill you up. What's the difference between doing that ketogenically or just doing that with just food control?
yeah, that's a great question. And there is a big difference. The main thing that I would say is that you train your body to use a different fuel source. So, your body burns pretty much either sugar into glucose or fat into ketones. And the way you do the ketogenic diet is you don't worry about how much the person's eating. In fact, in the beginning, I usually say, eat as much as you possibly want. Like, make sure you feel satiated. Make sure you feel full, like you've got a lot of food that you're really happy about. And don't worry about your calories. For the first 2 or 3 weeks, that's all we work on. And they get fat adapted. It makes their body able to burn fat for fuel. And then when you lower calories, you're not actually lowering the person's available energy for metabolic production and energy production. You're only lowering the food because now the body's been trained to burn fat for fuel and it automatically starts burning your body fat for fuel. So even though you lower your calories by eating less, you actually won't have hunger pains. You won't have these feelings of like, well, I just don't have enough food. I'm a little like, none of that. So what you're doing is approaching it from a different angle that allows the body to still have a fuel source, even though you're eating less.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so basic understanding is you're trying to get ketones produced, so you're eating enough of fats, you're kind of pulling away from the carbs, your body's going to go into ketosis. Ketosis eventually over time is something you're going to have to help break down fat into energy. Your body's going to use that as an energy fuel source, so that you no longer need those carb heavy sources, because now you have fat to help drive you, and since you're burning fat that way, it's going to help you lose weight, and it's easier to fast
Yeah,
now.
I mean, that's actually a great way of just breaking it down to the nuts and bolts. But one thing I will say is that with the ketogenic lifestyle that I tend to work with people on, it's more about feeding your body what it needs when it needs it. For example, in certain protocols, I'll have the person eat a bit higher carb because there's certain hormones that are only stimulated when your carbs are higher. So the idea of being keto adapted is that, yes, they'll eat higher carb for a week while they're stimulating those hormones, and then they'll go back to low carb, and their body is able to shift gears. It's more of a being metabolically elastic point than always being low carb.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
my next question would be, if we stick in that adapting phase, right? Because I think it's the first place to start. You have to get
Yeah.
used to going into ketosis. That's known. That's common knowledge.
Yeah.
Here are my general issues with it, and I want you to break it down and explain it a little further, because maybe it's a lack of understanding. The first one would be, you go through something which the public has just labeled as a keto flu, but what it really means is your brain generally functions off of carbs as a source of energy. And then when you strip that carb source out, you go into this keto flu where you feel sickly. You're very run down. You have no energy. You feel like you could just sleep all day. Very lethargic feeling, because at that point,
Sure.
you're no longer fueling your brain. And then it takes a while for ketosis to hit in, to then start refueling your brain, to then feeling better. So I guess my point being, if you're forced to go through this keto flu, which I don't like using that term, but everyone just knows what it is,
Sure.
is why does that make it beneficial for the body to basically starve your brain from carbs over the course of a couple of days to a week, depending on the individual?
Right. Yeah. No, that is an awesome question. And I agree wholeheartedly with you. The keto flu is not healthy. And if you're getting keto flu, you're doing keto wrong. So I would say, I want to say 99%, but just to be a little conservative, I'll say at least 90% of the clients that I work with never experience keto flow. And that is because I approach it in a way that is how your body actually mimics the way your body actually operates, right? So, for example, when we're born and we're receiving food, we are in a state of ketosis. The body is actually used to absorbing a lot of fat from the food source it has, and it uses it in a ketogenic state. And then we kind of morph out of that depending on our lifestyle and how we eat. So your body naturally wants to be able to produce ketones. And if you do it correctly, you don't get keto flu. And the way you do it correctly, not to bury the lead here, is you actually have to give the body sufficient fuel. So when I start out the ketogenic diet with someone, I have them count their macros. But one thing I don't have them count is veggies, low carb veggies. They can eat as many low carb veggies as they can cram in. And I also have a couple different green drinks that are like one little scoop of them is like 10 cups of veggies or something, right? So, and I have them cram all this in, and their carbs are pretty high compared to the classic keto diet where they say 20 grams is your limit, right? But they get into ketosis and get keto and fat adapted more quickly than someone who's doing it, and they go through this whole keto flu phase. Keto flu is basically you're starving your body of the nutrients it needs to operate, and or it's a detox phenomena from not approaching it on the correct gradient, like doing things too quickly. So not to get overly technical or long-winded with my answer, but if you have enough nutrients, the body it has the building blocks to create the new machinery it needs to produce ketones. If you don't, it depletes itself in order to produce those because you're starving it basically.
Interesting. So
Yeah,
I liked. What was that?
Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah, that was really good. I like that
Okay.
a lot. I love the fact you were talking about adding veggies in as a low carb source and not counting them towards your carbohydrate intake. And I think that's so important. And it definitely makes a huge difference. And I just think this is just a point, something I'm starting to get a feeling from you, and
Mm-hmm.
is people, I guess, just generally don't understand what labeled this as a keto diet or whatever their interpretation
Yeah.
of it is. Yeah, and it's just totally different across the board. So
Yeah.
most people think it's this crazy thing. They're going to start putting butter inside their coffee and eat bacon all day. And
Yeah.
I've seen it. But just because they think that's, as long as I just eat fat sources from fats, it's going to be beneficial. But on the flip side is most Americans in general don't get enough veggies in their diet. Not even
Exactly.
close. So getting those micro and macronutrients into veggies is so important and such an underutilized source, which is why, kind of like what you're saying, I'll put it in any diet. I don't care what you're doing, how you're eating. Eat
Yeah.
as much veggies as you want. You'll never get fat off eating veggies. Have you ever
That's
heard
right.
anyone gaining 15 pounds eating too many carrots or lettuce?
No.
No, you'll
Never.
be so full trying to get the calories in from that you're
Yeah.
never going to gain weight. So just eating more veggies in and of itself is going to be super beneficial, and you get all your essential vitamins in from a better
Yeah.
source than even taking multivitamins could ever even offer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I want to
Yeah.
double back though, because I know I went a little off tangent like we all do. But so
Yeah.
I love that. I love getting the veggies. I love them taking that and going into a more natural source as far as like eating more of a keto diet. So I'm gonna let you just kind of walk us through how you teach it a little first.
Okay.
What's the next step after that? Are you eating a zero carb source, or is it just only veggies as a carb source? Or what exactly is the next step that you teach your clients after kind of weaning down? What's that goal you get to?
Well, I use a tool called Keto Mojo, and I have them measure their ketones and their glucose and come up with a figure that basically tells us what state of ketosis they're in. So after they've been eating a lot of these high veggie diet with a lot of fat and good protein and low carb, they start to produce ketones. And when they get to a certain point where their ketones in this measurement are around 1, which is kind of a moderate state of ketosis, is ideal for health benefits and weight loss. But if you get higher than that, there are a lot of other benefits which are amazing. So after they get to that kind of first step, then we start to play with things. If their main goal is weight loss, then we take their calories and we lower it by lowering only fat. We don't mess with the carbs, and we keep the protein high. That's right. The protein is used to build everything we need to operate. I mean, most people think muscles and getting stronger, and yes, that's absolutely true. But all your enzymes, all your hormones, your cellular structure, your bone structure, this is all protein based. So we always keep the protein high, and then we lower the fat in order to lower the calories. But remember, when you're ketogenically adapted, your body won't be starved because it'll start using your body fat for fuel. So you'll maintain your energy. In fact, a very thin, in good shape person has about 70,000 calories worth of fat on their body. And I'm talking somebody who's like fit. Someone who's a little overweight, you're talking like hundreds of thousands of available calories in body fat. So that's how I wiggle it around in order for you to change body composition. Now, if a person wants cognitive health, then we'll change the type of fats that they're eating. So we'll have them use more coconut oil or MCT oil. And this will help with cognitive boosting, and will incorporate fasting. Now, fasting can be used for body composition as well, but fasting for cognitive ability, memory, improving your awakeness and energy is just amazing. So then what we do is we start getting them into a longer fasting period. So we take go for at least 15 to 16 hours of no eating, and then we up it from there. But I'll get into fasting later if you want me to. But that's what I would do as far as the ketogenic part of the diet goes.
Very interesting. I definitely have a lot of follow-up questions, but unfortunately, we got to take a quick word from our sponsor. So guys, we will be right back. Don't miss it. Thank you to our sponsor, Hydronic Hydration Electrolyte Powder Drink Packets. Started in the midst of the pandemic, the founder of Hydronic Hydration, a frontline healthcare worker, started developing constant headaches. A landmark research study published early during the pandemic showed that 81% of frontline healthcare workers developed new headaches, mainly because of their PPE, which prevented them from eating and drinking properly while on the job. He would leave work tired, dehydrated, and burnt out. The founder looked for a healthy drink with all the necessary vitamins and minerals, but with no sugar. But most powdered drinks in the market have a ton of sugar and caffeine. That's why he created Hydronic Hydration, sugar-free, plant-based, antioxidant-rich electrolyte powder packets for daily use, containing all essential vitamins and minerals with a refreshing taste. Their product contains elderberry, which is known to have immune-boosting properties, especially during the cold and flu season. Hydronic Hydration electrolyte powders can also fit in your bag or suitcase when traveling, and are super convenient just to carry around and have with you day to day. So if you're having trouble with eating and drinking healthy during your busy day and want a great alternative to other high sugar hydration companies, then give Hydronic Hydration a try. There are 30 of these great electrolyte powder packets in a pouch, perfect for a 1 month supply. You can visit www.hydronichydration.com. That's www.hydronique hydration.com. It's the word hydration and unique mashed together. Or search Hydronic Hydration on Amazon, where they are offering a $10 discount coupon at checkout. Anyway, guys, links in the bio. Please go check them out. Thank you again to our sponsor, Hydronic Hydration. I drink these packets almost every single day. They also have a ton of great vitamins and nutrients in them, including vitamin C, the elderberry mentioned, magnesium, and zinc. So even if you have a little night out with too many drinks, or you had a really good workout, because I hope that's the reason, grab one of these packets today, pick it up. Now back to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We have Ryan here talking all about his approach to the keto diet, how threw me a curveball, and it turns out he teaches it totally different than most people do, which is awesome. But glad he does, and has been super helpful of kind of breaking down and figuring out if it's something you should or should not be doing, and working our way through there. So you mentioned a lot of good points pre-break about the adapting to fasting, so let's talk about the different types of fats that you're specifically doing, because we've talked previously about the difference between unsaturated fats and saturated fats, and a lot of studies have shown about the negative effects of saturated fats. They're the biggest outlier risk for cardiovascular disease and high cholesterol. So it's something to keep a point on, and it's related to the keto diet, because most people, like I was mentioning a little earlier, was let's add butter to our coffee kind of mentality, and the bacon, where they're doing themselves more harm than good eating that. Right. So how do you explain fat eating to people? I don't know how else to word that, but how would you explain that to somebody, and how do you feel about the different types of saturated and unsaturated fats?
No, that's great. Great question. Yeah. So I explain it in a way to help people understand why fats are beneficial. So obviously you can overdo anything. If you're eating 100% fat, you're overdoing it. If you're eating 80 to 90% fat, you're probably overdoing it. However, if you're really smart about it and look at the human body and what your goals are for your, program, whether it's weight loss, improved energy, cognitive, emotional health, whatever it is, there's different ways of eating different fats that will help you. So, for example, MCTs, medium chain triglycerides, are great for brain health. Your brain's able to absorb them and use them as a fuel source, similar to the way it uses carbohydrates. The only difference being is that your brain's about 70% fat, give or take which study you're reading. And it allows it to do healing and repairing at the same time as producing energy. So if you have MCT high fat sources, coconut oil, it's a great one. MCT oil, organic coconut thrives your best. Even grass-fed, and it's really important that it's grass-fed organic, because if it's not, it has less of these positive fats in it. So these type of fat sources are going to be great for energy and repairing the parts of your body that use a lot of fat. Now, if you're into building strength in your body and you want to create more stability regarding your body, then you want to have more saturated fats. Again, in moderation, but you want to have more than you probably think, because the saturated fats are the building blocks of your cells, along with proteins are the main components that build your cells, right? And then, people always bring up the cholesterol bit. So just to speak to that briefly, eggs have, been vilified, but if you eat a lot of eggs and you have them in the right, with the other correct foods, you can actually get a lot of benefits from them, and your body actually produces a certain amount of cholesterol every day. It actually is something your body makes. It's just to say it might not be as bad as some people say.
I'm going to actually chime in here about that point real quick, because I got into a huge argument with my brother, who is the doctor that was on that show, over cholesterol. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I ended up being right. He admitted it 7 months later. It took him 7 months, but we got there.
Okay.
Where cholesterol, dietary cholesterol, meaning cholesterol found in foods, does not, I want to repeat, does not impact your cholesterol in your body. It is actually more likely to come from foods high in saturated fats. That's where you're getting the dietary issue that's making your cholesterol higher. But realistically, the biggest number one reason that your cholesterol is probably through the roof is because it's genetic and your body's just producing too much. But my point being, you look at more saturated fats as opposed to cholesterol as far as when it comes to what types of foods you're eating.
Yeah, and see, and I agree. Your body already produces cholesterol. So if everything's balanced, even if you're predisposed to it, if your hormones are balanced, you're much less likely to get the negative effects you might get from having too much. And the great thing about doing keto correctly is it balances hormones. In fact, I didn't get into this, but when I'm working with somebody, especially somebody who is trying to handle certain emotional issues or doing it for energy reasons, we really concentrate on a hormone balance using the ketogenic diet. And that will tell your body not to produce as much cholesterol if it's done correctly.
Interesting. You brought up hormonal imbalances. And one thing I mentioned on the other show, and I'm just going to re-bring it up, a big positive of the keto was the effects it had with those suffering from schizophrenia.
Yes.
And it was really that what was schizophrenia? I'm sorry, I'm having a mind blank. Or was it epilepsy?
Autism. Yeah,
one of
those.
Yeah. It was a mental health, and I don't mean to laugh about it because it's not a laughable situation, but it just meant like I came up with blanking on it. But yeah, it was kind of interesting how it was able to regulate enough and have a positive impact to the point that they actually recommend it to patients to eat that diet because it does help their hormones. So I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, We have clients who come in, especially younger people, who we put on a ketogenic diet specifically for that reason. And that's the original kind of foundation of the ketogenic diet, was for people with epilepsy and later for children with autism, to help them, alleviate the symptoms. Now, that said, that's the modern man using something that's been around since the beginning of time, since the beginning of human bodies. So the ketogenic state was always with the body. It's just we're now just learning and figuring it out so that we can use it for different benefits that we need now in modern life.
Yeah. And I brought up a positive, now I'm going to bring up a negative, and I want you to rebuttal me the same question I had on the debate. But
Okay, yeah.
a landmark study came out about, I want to say 2.5 years ago, but they were showing that the keto diet, if done long term, can take up to 7 years off your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was either interesting. Obviously, if you believed every study you ever read, you'd be more confused than anybody else. So you have to make sure you're looking into certain factors of it, like how many people are in the group, what's the N factor, what's the p-value. But it was interesting. They pushed it out into the medical journals, and it was intriguing. So what are your answers to someone bringing that up? Well, hey, look, listen, Ryan, it's showing it takes 7 years off my life. What's your answer?
Well, my answer is I can only speak from my own experience and clinical observations. So, working with hundreds of different people, I've found that it tends to promote longevity. And even more important, it promotes your health span. And by that, I mean the length of time that you're healthy and really enjoying life and able to, obviously, they should go hand in hand with longevity, but sometimes they don't. And you have to wonder why. So, for me, I found the benefits to be amazing. And again, I don't know that study. I'm not familiar with it. And I don't know, like you said, what were the parameters, what went on with it. But I can't speak to saying I noticed it be negative for anyone. I have noticed that when it's done incorrectly, when people just all of a sudden start eating 80% of their diet from fat and not good fats, or just living off bacon, yeah, that's not smart. But you'd think you might not have to say that, just putting it there, right? But the point is, if it's done correctly, yes, I found it to be very beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest point. Now, I'd like to see that study redone with different parameters and having more of a strict structure on what exactly kinds of fats are they eating, what exactly is going on in the situation. I think, but beyond that, and just things that I see, and another just thing you can kind of elaborate off of is, especially with the keto, but every diet, they always have a yo-yo effect to them, which means that someone's going to sit there, they're going to drop 100 pounds, and then they're going to stop because it's not sustainable, and they're going to end up gaining 110. So they just netted 10 pounds. And you see that a lot because your body is not used to eating like that, and it's not maintainable for that individual to continue to eat that same thing over and over and over again, which is why most diets fail. It needs to be a lifestyle change in anything. That's something we've talked about time and time again. Yeah. But when I had the dietitian on the keto debate, she was mentioning how when she sees patients that the keto diet actually breaks down someone's metabolism. I know it's something she's a really advocate for, where it actually lowers your metabolic rate. And when you do flip back to eating normal foods, your metabolic rate got so much lowered that now you're going to gain fat so much quicker because you're burning way less calories at rest. Work us through this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So done incorrectly, well, this is true of anything. Anything done incorrectly obviously isn't going to be beneficial. So maybe that's obvious, but done incorrectly, the ketogenic diet, like anything else, will not produce the benefits and could end up, taking you back, regressing rather than progressing in your health journey. So the way I always approach it with a client is we're getting you healthy and we're making the healthy lifestyle sustainable. so that you then can get benefits, right? So with a ketogenic diet, if you were to eat bad fats, not have the nutrient density from sources, and when I say nutrient density, we mostly talk about vegetables, but I do all I can to get people to start eating organ meats because they're the original superfood, right? And then, healthy protein options, and, doing it in a way that your body allows itself to build up too. Some people's metabolic state is so damaged that when you start giving it fat, they don't have the bile production available to actually break down the fats. It becomes a toxic entity entering the body that it now has to deal with on top of all the other things that an unhealthy body has to deal with. So I would agree, if it's done incorrectly, I have seen it done incorrectly. People come to me and say, I've been doing keto for years. I think, yeah, you have been doing keto for years. You think you have, but that's not keto. Or that's what, mainstream media has convinced you is keto. And the other thing is all these foods out there that are keto friendly, I tell you, they're not friendly except to the bank account of the company making them sometimes, in my opinion. But you have to do it in a way that actually nourishes the body. And if it's done tailored to a certain person, I've seen it get amazing benefits.
Yeah, I liked the tidbit. One of my favorite parts that you mentioned is you're only putting money in the company's pocket.
Yeah,
because it's so true. How many things in life are like, this is healthy, then you flip over and read the ingredients, and it's got more things on it than you even know. Half of this stuff you're looking like, what the heck is that even real? Meaning it is all produced out of a lab somewhere.
Yeah.
Eat real foods. I don't know how else you can say this in any aspect.
I'm a complete advocate. Yeah.
I love that, man. That's what it's all about. It's like you can flip back and forth between intermittent fasting, keto, whatever it is. You're still eating real foods. And the real issue coming from all of this is you're just eating overly processed, disgusting food and you're like, well, I don't understand. Well, look what you're eating. And you're not getting enough veggies. You're not drinking enough water. These little simple fixes, which is what we keep pounding on the show over and over and over again. But it's so true. You want to argue about the keto diet? Great. People should have different opinions. But everyone will agree that you got to eat healthy foods and real foods, no matter what you're eating, keto or not. Eating real foods is going to make the biggest difference altogether. Then you can argue about the nitty-gritty stuff afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to have the whole foods. If whole food sources are not in your diet, there's something missing. I mean, I always tell my clients, we only really know about 10% of what's going on with the body. All these studies and people pretending they know everything about the body. Yeah, they don't know. We know about 10% max on a good day what causes the body to tick. So what about the other 90%? It's like, would you hire somebody to tell you everything to do with your house and all he knows how to do is hammer nails and use boards? So there's an experimental process going on here. You have to do what works for you. And we know nature built things with whole food sources that actually nourish the body. So until we figure out every little chemical and biochemical process in the body, stick to whole food sources.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's the best place to kind of put it there. But Ryan, I'm going to ask you the last two questions I ask everybody. First two questions. Okay. If you were to summarize this episode in one or two sentences, what would be your take-home message?
Use whole food ketogenic fasting for great health.
Love it. And then the last question that everyone gets, this is going to be your time to shine, is how can people find you, get a hold of you, give us all the good stuff?
Okay, great. Yeah. So I am on Instagram. My handle is @longevity fitness and health. And you can also email me at info@longevityfitnessandhealth.com or check out my website. I have information there. You can also book an appointment with me. And that's www.longevityfitnessandhealth.com.
Love it. And thank you for coming on, Ryan. And thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of Health and Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and join us next week as we dive deeper into this ever-changing field. And remember, fitness is a journey, not a destination. Until next time. For us, we know what it's like to feel unhealthy, depressed, depressed, and downright defeated. We want to show others there is a right way, and through fitness, you can do anything you set your mind to. Fitness can give you that motivation, confidence, energy you need to bridge that mental gap and prevent you from missing important life events. We understand it's about feeling better, living longer, and being good examples for our kids. We understand this because we live it. And for us, that's the redefined difference.